Davis returns with a warm, easy calm. He thanks everyone for joining him tonight, then leans in gently. "Before we begin, tell me, where are you listening tonight?" He lets the question settle like quiet steam from a teacup. Then he invites the audience closer, voice soft, steady, welcoming. "Settle in, let the evening slow, and let tonight's mystery open its first page." A pause. Something small, something ordinary, will soon change everything. Miss Marple stepped into the small village tea room with quiet ease. A familiar place. Warm tables. Soft chatter. Nothing rushed. Nothing loud. Just the slow rhythm of a winter afternoon. Mrs. Dolly Bantry walked beside her, cheerful as ever. She carried a knitted bag, bright blue, stuffed with things she insisted she might need later, though no one knew when. "Jane, I promise the scones are fresher today," Dolly said. Miss Marple smiled. "Then we must test that promise." They found a corner, table. Steam drifted from nearby cups. Two village ladies debated the weather. A young clerk tried to balance too many plates at once. The vicar's niece practiced her order under her breath before approaching the counter. Ordinary faces, ordinary moments. The kind that made Street Mary Mead feel safe. Dolly waved at Mrs. Dodds behind the counter. "3 things, dear. 1, the scones. 2, the strong tea. 3, do remind the cook I'm avoiding those cinnamon biscuits." Mrs. Dodds raised an eyebrow. "You said that last week, and yet you ate 4. Dolly laughed. Temptation is a terrible foe. Warm amusement rippled across the tea room. Miss Marple stirred her thoughts as gently as she stirred her tea. She watched without seeming to watch. A habit, a comfort. Faces told stories long before mouths opened. At the next table, Mr. Imus, Finch postmaster, reliable, always punctual, read the paper with unusual tension. His fingers tapped. His eyes lifted often, as though expecting someone. Across the room, Lily Veen arranged flowers in a vase. Her movements were calm. Too calm. Measured. She avoided looking toward the door. Near the counter, young Tommy Briggs pretended to read a comic, but kept glancing toward a man in a dark coat. The man looked out of place. Not unfriendly. Just unsettled. He checked his watch. Twice. Then again. Dolly leaned in. "Jane, are you listening to me at all?" Miss Marple blinked. "Yes, dear. Every word." Dolly sighed. "You're doing that thing." "What thing?" "The thing where you see 6 conversations at once." Miss Marple's smile deepened. "It's simply habit." The clerk returned with a tray and set it down awkwardly. A spoon slipped. Soft clang. Nothing dramatic. But Tommy Briggs flinched at the sound. Miss Marple noticed. Small things mattered. Always. Then came the moment that shifted the room's gentle ease. A quiet argument. Barely a whisper. Finch's paper trembled. Lily's hands paused mid-arrangement. The man in the dark coat muttered something under his breath. Sharp. Quick. Gone. Something dropped near the doorway. A folded piece of paper. No one bent to pick it up. No one claimed it. It simply lay there, faintly creased, edges curled. Miss Marple's gaze lingered on it. Just a scrap. Just a nothing. Yet not nothing at all. Dolly reached for her scone. "So, Jane, peaceful afternoon, isn't it?" Miss Marple touched her cup. "Peaceful," she said softly. But her eyes returned to the doorway, to the paper no one wanted. A small thing. An ordinary thing. And yet, something in the room had shifted. The tea room grew busier as the hour passed. Chairs shifted. Cups clinked. People moved in small, familiar patterns. A cozy winter hum settled over the room. Mrs. Dodds hurried from table to table. Her apron rustled. Her eyes tracked every spilled crumb. Behind her, the young clerk tried, balancing another tray with the courage of a man who had already failed twice today. The vicar's niece joined her friends near the fireplace. They whispered about the parish raffle. Who would win the winter hamper? Who deserved to? Who certainly didn't? Small stakes, big opinions. Mr. Finch folded his newspaper, too sharply. Edges bent. He nodded at no one. He looked at no one. He simply rose, fetched another cup of tea, and sat again with a sigh that didn't match his earlier jitters. Lily Veen finished her flower arrangement. Pink carnations. A sprig of rosemary. She placed the vase near the window. Her hands trembled just for a moment. Only a moment. But Miss Marple saw it. Dolly Bantry didn't notice. She chatted happily about the day's event. The garden club meeting is at 4. Everyone's bringing cuttings. Even Mr. Patterson says he'll come. He never comes. Imagine that, Jane. Miss Marple nodded. Yes, quite unexpected. Today's gathering was simple. A pre-meeting tea. A warm pause before the little show of plants and opinions. Everyone had something to say about roses or roots or soil that was too sandy. A harmless tradition. Comforting. But today felt different. Just slightly. A shift beneath the calm. Tommy Briggs left his comic behind and slipped to the counter. He whispered something to Mrs. Dodds. She frowned. He frowned back. He left quickly. His footsteps hurried. Troubled. Miss Marple watched his shoulders. Stiff. Drawn tight. At another table, the man in the dark coat scribbled in a small notebook. Short notes. Abrupt. He glanced at Finch. Just once. Just enough. Finch looked away. Too fast. Dolly leaned closer to Miss Marple. I do hope today goes smoothly, she murmured. Lily has been delicate lately. Miss Marple gently stirred her tea. She seems thoughtful. Dolly sighed. Thoughtful is one word. Haunted is another. The fireplace crackled. Someone laughed too loudly. Someone else shushed them. The tea room breathed like an old friend. Then the odd moment came. Quiet. Barely noticed. Lily returned to her seat. She reached for her small purse, opened it slowly, looked inside, stopped. Her face drained of color. Her hand froze halfway out of the purse. Her breath hitched quick, light, frightened. She closed the purse, firmly, too firmly, and set it down with a carefulness that was not calm at all. Dolly didn't see it. No one did. Except Miss Marple. Something wasn't right. Not with Lily. Not with Finch. Not with Tommy's hurried whisper. Not with the man in the coat. A cozy tea room. Warm chairs. Soft voices. But threads were pulling in strange directions. Miss Marple studied her tea. Then looked up once more. A moment out of place had opened the door. Quietly. Softly. Enough to let the first shadow in. The tea room held its usual warmth. Until it didn't. It happened fast. Too fast for anyone to understand at first. A chair scraped. A gasp followed. Then a sharp cry cut through the cozy chatter. Mr. Finch stood, swayed, and clutched the table. His newspaper slid to the floor. His knees buckled. He fell sideways, knocking over his untouched cup of tea. Porcelain shattered. Liquid spread in a thin amber pool. A chorus of startled voices rose instantly. Someone help! What's happening? Is he fainting? The vicar's niece covered her mouth. Lily Veen froze mid-step. The young clerk dropped his tray again. People rushed forward without knowing what to do. Hands hovered, voices tangled, chairs scraped frantically. Dolly Bantry grabbed Miss Marple's arm. Oh, Jane, oh dear, something's terribly wrong. But Miss Marple stayed seated, still, calm. Her eyes moved with steady care. Not to Finch, not yet. To the things around him. The fallen paper, the untouched biscuit, the cup, the spill, the purse on the next table. The man in the dark coat stepping back quietly, too quietly, slipping behind the crowd. Mrs. Dodds hurried forward, flustered. Give him space. Let him breathe. She waved her apron uselessly. The room pulsed with panic. The door opened hard. Inspector Slack entered, summoned by someone who had dashed to the high street. He took one look and barked orders. Clear the area. Move back. You, fetch the doctor. No pushing, give him air. The crowd shifted clumsily. Two men lifted Finch's shoulders. His eyes fluttered. His breath came shallow. His lips carried a strange color. Dolly clutched her chest. Oh heavens, is it his heart? The inspector crouched beside the fallen postmaster. "Finch! Finch! Can you hear me?" No clear answer came. Only a low groan. Only confusion. Miss Marple finally rose. Quiet steps. Steady voice. She touched Dolly's shoulder. "Let them work. We mustn't crowd him." But her own gaze was already searching. Not for Finch, but for the shape of the moment. The pattern beneath the panic. Tommy Briggs hovered near the counter, pale. Lily Veen wiped her hands with a trembling napkin. The man in the coat slipped farther away, pretending to help someone else. The purse Lily had opened earlier was now half hidden under her chair. Miss Marple watched everything. Every glance. Every shift. Every instinctive movement. Because panic reveals truth. And truth hides in the small things. Finch coughed. Twice. The doctor arrived in a rush and took over quickly. The inspector pulled barriers back and kept order with tight, sharp commands. Slowly, slowly. The room settled again. A shaken quiet. A held breath. Then Miss Marple saw it. The small detail. The one that did not belong. The thing everyone else stepped around, ignored, or overlooked. A thin smear near the spilled tea. Faint. Barely visible. Wrong color. Wrong shape. Not tea. Not dust. Something else. She paused, looked once more, then lifted her eyes. Someone in the room knew exactly what had just happened, and someone hoped she wouldn't notice. But she had, and it changed everything. The tear room did not return to normal, not even close. It breathed in short, uneven bursts, whispers, murmurs, half-formed stories spilling across tables. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone had theories, and every theory pointed the wrong way. Mrs. Dodds paced behind the counter. "I knew he looked pale when he walked in," she whispered to the baker's wife. "Should have sent him home. Should have said something." The baker's wife shook her head. No, it was the tea. I'm sure of it." "Don't start that." "I will. I tasted it. It was odd today, too bitter." "It's the same batch as yesterday." "Then yesterday was odd too." Near the window, the vicar's niece clutched her scarf. Her friends leaned in tightly. "It's his nerves," she insisted. "Finch always worried about the money at the post office. Aunt Clara said he's stressed over every missing penny. But fainting like that, people faint, people panic. He didn't look panicked. Then maybe he saw something before we did." The young clerk tried sweeping broken porcelain but kept stopping to speak. "It's the diet he was on," he muttered. "He told me last week he'd cut out all bread. Bread is important. Bread keeps you solid." Mr. Patterson, entering late, overheard and snorted. "Nonsense. Bread has never stopped a man from falling." The clerk straightened. "Then what did, sir?" Patterson didn't answer. He just frowned at the spill on the floor. Dolly Bantry fluttered between tables like an anxious bird. "I know what it is," she said to Lily Veen. "Finch works too hard. Never rests. Always worrying. Worrying ruins a person." Lily nodded faintly. "Yes, worry can be heavy." Her voice thinned on the last word. Dolly didn't notice. Miss Marple did. At the counter, Tommy Briggs sulked. His comic lay forgotten. He tugged at Mrs. Dodds's sleeve. "You didn't tell them," he whispered. Mrs. Dodds shushed him. "We don't want to start rumors." Tommy's eyes widened. "But it's true." Quiet. Across the room, the man in the dark coat finally spoke. Low voice, measured tone. "He fainted. Happens at his age. You all make too much of it." But his foot tapped. Fast. Restless. Uncertain. And then someone noticed it. A woman near the fireplace gasped. "Where's Finch's satchel?" Heads turned. Eyes scanned the floor, the chair, the counter. Nothing. Not even a strap. The tear room tightened again. Another wave of whispers. "He always carries it. It was with him when he came in. I saw him place it under the table." "Did someone take it? Was it stolen? You don't collapse and lose a satchel unless something is wrong." The inspector overheard and stepped closer. Satchel. But no one had answers. Only guesses. Only more noise. Miss Marple didn't join the noise. She simply watched, listened, stored every loose thread quietly. Lily's tight voice, Tommy's urgent whisper, Finch's missing satchel, the bitter tea rumour, the man in the coat's too casual dismissal, and the odd smear near the spilled tea. Still there. Still wrong. Dolly leaned toward Miss Marple. Everyone is talking. No one knows anything. Miss Marple nodded gently. That is often the way. Dolly frowned. What matters then? Miss Marple looked toward the empty space under Finch's table. The missing thing, she murmured. It always matters. A soft truth. A quiet warning. A hook that tugged the whole room forward. Lily Veen folded her hands too tightly, knuckles pale, breath thin, eyes fixed on nothing. She stood near the window as if needing distance, from the room and from herself. Dolly approached first. Lily, dear, are you all right? Lily nodded too quickly. Yes, yes, of course. Her voice wavered. Not a calm waver, a cracking one. Miss Marple stepped closer, gentle as ever. Would you sit for a moment, my dear? Lily hesitated, then lowered herself into the nearest chair. She clutched her purse. Held it close, too close. Miss Marple settled opposite her, not looming, not pressing, simply present, a quiet comfort. You seemed troubled earlier, Miss Marple said softly. Lily blinked fast. That was nothing. Her words rushed out. Too sharp, too defensive. Miss Marple didn't argue. She waited. Silence, warm and patient, did its quiet work. Lily exhaled. Long, unsteady. Her shoulders sank. It's been a difficult week. Miss Marple nodded. Difficulties often come in clusters. Lily looked at her hands. I didn't sleep last night. Not properly. Everything felt wrong, off balance. Her voice trembled again. And Finch, he was upset with me yesterday. Dolly leaned in. Upset? Why? Lily hesitated. A long pause. Then, he said I'd misplaced a payment. A parcel payment. He was angry. Very angry. Dolly's eyebrows lifted. Oh, but Finch is particular. He frets over tiny things. Lily shook her head. It wasn't tiny to him. He said it wasn't the first time. He said people would think he couldn't manage the office. Miss Marple listened carefully, gently. Did you misplace it? Lily's lips parted, closed, parted again. I don't know. I might have. I've been distracted. And he knew that. Her fingers tightened around her purse again. I didn't mean to upset him. I never want to. She swallowed hard. People think Finch is calm, controlled. But he wasn't calm yesterday, not with me. Dolly exchanged a quick glance with Miss Marple, a new ripple of suspicion. A personal quarrel, a motive, all too tidy, too perfectly shaped. Miss Marple kept her tone warm. Did you speak with him this morning? Lily nodded. He wouldn't look at me, not once. Her voice broke. I tried to apologize. He brushed past me. She wiped her eyes. I thought he hated me. Miss Marple touched her hand lightly. People under strain often lash out without meaning to. Lily nodded again, but her breath trembled. Her eyes glistened. Fear lived in the corners of her expression. Lily, Miss Marple said quietly, is there anything else troubling you? Anything you have not said? Lily hesitated, then leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. Yes, I thought someone took something from my purse. Miss Marple's eyes warmed. Something important? Yes. Very. Lily shivered. But when Finch collapsed, I looked again, and it was still there. Miss Marple's brow lifted slightly. Still. There? Lily nodded. Yes, exactly where I left it. Exactly how I left it. She paused, a long, uneasy pause. But the purse was open when I picked it up. The room around them hummed softly. Dolly frowned. The purse was open? Are you sure? Lily nodded. Yes, wide open, but everything inside was untouched. Miss Marple tilted her head. a gentle, curious angle. "That is interesting, my dear, because it didn't fit. Not with Lily's fear, not with her story, not with the moment they'd all seen. Something was wrong in her words, one detail out of rhythm, one truth out of place. A contradiction, quiet, small, but enough for Miss Marple to feel the first click of the deeper pattern forming. The young clerk lingered near the counter long after the broken porcelain had been swept away. He wiped the same spot again and again, cloth moving in small, nervous circles. His eyes kept drifting toward Miss Marple, not boldly, not confidently, but with the quiet urgency of someone carrying a truth too heavy for silence. Miss Marple noticed, of course. She always did. She approached him gently. "Busy morning," she said. The clerk swallowed. "Yes, ma'am. Very." He hesitated, shifted his weight, looked at the floor, looked at her hands, looked anywhere except her eyes. Then, finally, he gathered the courage. "There's something I should tell you." Dolly leaned closer, curious. Miss Marple offered a small nod, the kind that invites honesty. The clerk took a deep breath. "I saw someone near Mr. Finch's table, just before he fell." Miss Marple's expression softened. "Someone you recognized?" The clerk shook his head quickly. "No, I thought I did, but I didn't." Another breath, a trembling one. "I thought it was Tommy Briggs. He wears that same blue cap, always pulled low, always hiding his hair. So I thought it was him. I was sure." Dolly blinked. "You thought Tommy was near Finch's table?" "Yes," the clerk said. "At first." Miss Marple tilted her head. "At first?" The clerk nodded. "Yes, because when Finch collapsed, the person turned. And it wasn't Tommy." Dolly gasped. "Then who was it?" The clerk looked around before answering, quietly, carefully. "Someone taller, older, a man with a dark coat, and his cap wasn't blue. It only looked that way because of the light from the window." Miss Marple's eyes warmed with understanding. Misidentification. A common trap, one that often hid a more serious truth. "And did this man do anything unusual?" she asked. The clerk nodded again. "Yes." He bent down, like he was picking something up from under Finch's table. He lowered his voice even further. "I thought it was a dropped coin, but now it didn't look like a coin." Dolly inhaled sharply. "Oh my," the clerk continued, nervous energy tightening his voice. "He stood up fast, too fast, and then he walked away, right before Finch fell." Miss Marple watched him closely. "So you saw the man's movements clearly?" "Yes." "And his face?" The clerk paused, a long, uneasy pause. "I saw part of it, just a glimpse." He turned for a second when the spoon fell, but it wasn't a full face, only half, like he was hiding the rest. Miss Marple folded her hands lightly. Half a face, a shadowed expression, a man who stepped close at the wrong moment. A misidentification corrected, a pattern shifting. "Thank you," she said softly. "You've helped more than you know." The clerk swallowed again. "There's one more thing." Miss Marple waited. He whispered. When he turned, it wasn't Tommy's face, and it wasn't a stranger's either. Miss Marple leaned in the slightest bit. The clerk's voice shrank to a trembling thread. "It was familiar, very familiar, but not the face I expected to see, by Finch's table." A soft chill moved through the tier room. Not fear, recognition, the kind that whispers. Someone you know stood where they shouldn't have stood. The tier room door opened with a soft chime, a small sound, barely noticed at first. But the person who stepped in carried the kind of silence that made the whole room shift. A woman, mid-40s, plain coat, eyes tired from years, not days. Someone who looked as though she had walked a long road only to arrive somewhere she did not want to be. Mrs. Clara Finch, the postmaster's estranged sister. Dolly Bantry gasped softly. "Oh, dear me." Lily Veen stiffened in her chair. Tommy Briggs lowered his eyes. Even Inspector Slack paused mid-sentence. Clara Finch did not look at any of them. She went straight to the doctor kneeling beside her brother. Her hands trembled just once before she forced them still. "Is he alive?" The doctor nodded. "We're trying to stabilize him. He needs rest and testing." Clara swallowed. Her jaw tightened. She stepped back, away from the cluster of anxious onlookers. Miss Marple watched her move toward the far table, the one with the small vase of carnations. She stood there quietly, too quietly. Miss Marple approached her gently. "Mrs. Finch, I am so sorry this has happened." Clara exhaled a long, shaky breath. "You don't need to be sorry, Miss Marple. My brother carries the blame for his own troubles." A sharp line, a line with history behind it. Old wounds, unhealed ones. Miss Marple nodded once. "Family burdens can be heavy." Clara looked away. "Yes, heavier than most know." She hesitated, then reached into her coat pocket. She pulled out a folded paper, not new, edges worn, crease lines deep. "I came to return this," she said, her voice low. "Finch sent it to me years ago. A letter." She placed it on the table. Miss Marple didn't touch it yet. Clara's fingers lingered on the paper, as though letting go required effort. "He wanted money," Clara murmured, "for a debt. He begged me not to tell anyone, said it would ruin him." Dolly Bantry, hovering nearby, gasped again. "Finch? In debt? I never—" Clara lifted a hand, silencing her. "He lived two lives, Mrs. Bantry. One tidy, one desperate." Miss Marple's eyes gentled. "That must have been difficult." Clara's lips tightened. "It was. He stopped speaking to me when I refused to help again." She paused, breath trembling just a little. "It has been 5 years." Miss Marple nodded slowly. "And yet you came today." Clara closed her eyes for a moment. "I heard he was unwell. Something told me to come." A soft break in her voice. Not complete grief, but something close. Miss Marple's gaze settled on the folded letter. "May I?" Clara nodded. Miss Marple opened it carefully, read 2 lines, stopped, looked at the signature, then at Clara. "This was written 10 months ago," Miss Marple said quietly. Clara stiffened. "No, it's the old letter, the one from years back." Miss Marple shook her head gently. "No, my dear. This ink is too fresh, this paper too new, and the date is recent." Clara's face drained of color. I don't understand." Miss Marple folded the letter again, placed it down softly. A troubled past, a half-truth, a confession that didn't fit the evidence. If Clara didn't bring the old letter, then someone wanted her to think she did. Miss Marple sat at the small table by the window. Steam drifted from her fresh cup of tea. Outside, snow tapped lightly against the glass. Inside, the tea-room hummed with restless whispers. But Miss Marple listened only to the quiet rhythm of her own thoughts. She opened her small notebook. Neat pages, soft pencil marks. A space that held truth when the world grew noisy. She began her list. Simple, orderly, clear. Motives. Lily Veen. Fear, guilt, a quarrel. Clara Finch. Old resentment, hidden debts. The man in the dark coat. Unknown connection, secretive behavior. Tommy Briggs' nervous whispers, odd glances. Objects. Finch's missing satchel. Lily's open purse. The folded letter. The spilled tea. The faint smear on the floor. Timings. Finch sat at 11:42. The clerk saw the man at 11:46. The purse was open around the same time. Finch collapsed at 11:49. Clara entered at 12:03. Miss Marple pressed the pencil lightly. One detail stood out. One detail did not belong. She underlined it twice. The smear. Her eyes softened. "When a pattern forms, dear Jane," she murmured, "the stray thread is always the one worth tugging." Inspector Slack approached with heavy steps. "Miss Marple." A word. She closed her notebook gently. "Of course, Inspector." He lowered his voice. "We've spoken to the doctor. Initial findings." Miss Marple waited. Calm. Still, Slack continued. It wasn't a fainting spell, not a heart issue. Something else. Dolly gasped from her nearby seat. Do you mean poison? Slack sighed. We don't know yet, but the doctor found irritation around the lips. Slight discoloration, not typical of a collapse. Miss Marple nodded slowly. And the tea? We sampled it. Nothing unusual, nothing harmful. A soft hush fell over the table. Dolly blinked rapidly. But everyone said the tea tasted odd, too bitter. Slack waved a dismissive hand. Rumors. People taste what they expect when panic spreads. Miss Marple tilted her head. Then the tea did not cause it? No, Slack said. Doctor is certain. Whatever harmed Finch didn't come from the cup. Miss Marple looked down at her list again. Tea, smear, satchel, purse, letter. Slowly she crossed out tea from her suspects, then circled smear. Once, twice. Slack frowned. What do you see? In that? Miss Marple smiled faintly. Patterns, Inspector. And a pattern out of place. She placed her pencil down, folded her hands, her voice lowered to a soft, thoughtful murmur. The method of harm is not where everyone has been looking. Slack leaned in. Meaning what? Miss Marple's gaze drifted to Lily Veen, to her trembling hands, to her purse, then to the coat-wearing stranger, to his restless foot-tapping, to his half-seen face. Meaning, Miss Marple said, the first suspect fits too cleanly, far too neatly. Slack straightened. You think Lily didn't do it? Miss Marple shook her head gently. My dear Inspector, something about the method does not match her at all. She looked toward the smear on the floor, barely visible, nearly forgotten. Whatever harmed Finch, she whispered, did not come from a cup, a quarrel, or a frightened girl. A soft chill settled, not fear, recognition, the quiet, beginning of truth. Something about the poison or the tool didn't fit Lily, didn't fit the story, didn't fit the moment. And Miss Marple had just tugged the thread that would unravel everything. The tear room had quieted again, not peacefully, not naturally, but in the way rooms grow quiet when someone feels watched, or when a truth waits close to the surface. Miss Marple moved gently through the tables, her steps soft, her gaze thoughtful. The threads of the morning fear, quarrels, whispers were beginning to braid into a shape only she could see. She stopped beside Lily Veen once more. Lily sat rigid, hands clasped tightly, eyes fixed on the window but seeing nothing beyond her frightened thoughts. Lily, dear, Miss Marple said softly, may I sit with you? Lily nodded, barely, almost mechanically. Yes, please. Miss Marple lowered herself into the chair. She did not ask any questions yet. She simply waited. Silence, warm and patient, wrapped around them like a gentle shawl. Then Lily broke, not loudly, not dramatically, just a small, trembling breath that carried too much weight. It wasn't Finch, she whispered. Miss Marple's eyes softened. No? Lily shook her head. Tears gathered quietly. He wasn't supposed to be the one sitting there. Miss Marple's stillness grew sharper, more attentive. Tell me, my dear, who was meant to sit at that table? Lily's fingers tightened around the strap of her purse. Me. One word. Small. Heavy. Miss Marple waited. Lily continued in a trembling whisper. I sit there every morning. Same time. Same table. It's my little routine. Everyone knows it. Miss Marple nodded gently. Routine is predictable. Predictability invites danger. And this morning? Lily swallowed. Mrs. Dodds asked me to move to the window seat, just for a moment, so she could mop up spilled sugar from my usual spot. Dolly Bantry gasped. Oh, Lily. Oh, heavens. Lily pressed a shaking hand to her mouth. I saw Finch heading to the table. I meant to stop him, but he smiled and sat before I reached him. Miss Marple rested her hand on Lily's. And you believe something was meant for you? Lily nodded. Someone has been leaving notes for me. Warnings, little messages. Miss Marple's eyes narrowed just slightly. Warnings? Lily looked around nervously, as though every face might turn into the one she feared. Someone said I should watch where I sit, that I was being punished for mistakes I didn't understand. Her breath shook again. I thought it was Finch. I thought he was angry with me. But now, I'm not sure anymore. Miss Marple leaned closer, her voice low, calm. You mustn't blame yourself, but you must show me the note. Lily hesitated. Then slowly, fearfully, she opened her purse. Her fingers slipped between folded tissues and a small, compact. Then she pulled out a paper, thin, crumpled at the edges, written in hurried strokes. She placed it in Miss Marple's hand, lightly, as though the message itself carried weight. Miss Marple unfolded it. Read the short line, a line sharp enough to cut through the room. Sit elsewhere tomorrow. You won't get another warning. Dolly covered her mouth. Inspector Slack froze mid-step. Lily's eyes glistened. He wasn't the target, she whispered. I was. Miss Marple looked at the note again, then at the smear on the floor, then at the missing satchel, then at the unfamiliar face seen beside the table. A pattern was forming. Control, manipulation, fear, all woven with deliberate hands. Miss Marple rose slowly. Her gaze sharpened. Thank you, my dear. This tells me something important. Lily looked frightened. What? Miss Marple folded the note carefully. Softly, precisely. That whoever planned this, she murmured, did not plan on hurting Mr. Finch, and did not expect you to sit anywhere else. A quiet breath, a deeper silence. Lily reached into her purse again, pulling out a second object, hidden beneath the first. A small envelope, unopened, unmarked. Miss Marple, she whispered. This was left on my doorstep this morning. Miss Marple took the small envelope from Lily's trembling hands. She did not open it yet. She simply held it, weighing it, feeling its silence. Sometimes silence speaks louder than ink. Inspector Slack hovered nearby. What do you make of it, Miss Marple? She did not answer immediately. Instead, she moved to the corner table and set the envelope down beside her notebook. Her thoughts clicked softly into place. Pieces, patterns, not random, never random. She opened her notebook again, added a new line. Someone guiding Lily, someone punishing Lily. Then she looked toward Clara Finch, still shaken, still grasping the wrong letter. A letter she believed came from the past. A letter someone wanted her to believe came from the past. Miss Marple approached her quietly. Mrs. Finch, you said your brother sent you a letter years ago, but he signed this one just 10 months ago. Why would he rewrite an old plea? Clara blinked. I don't know. Miss Marple nodded gently. No, you don't. Because he didn't. Clara stared. You mean? Yes, Miss Marple said softly. This letter was planted, not by Finch, by someone who wanted you confused when you arrived, someone who needed your emotions, loud enough to distract. Inspector Slack stiffened. So the sister was misled. Yes, Miss Marple said, quite deliberately. Dolly clutched her scarf. But why trick her? Miss Marple gave her a kind look. To hide the real pattern, dear Dolly. If everyone sees Clara upset, everyone talks about Clara's past, and no one looks at Lily's present. Lily touched her purse gently. I thought Finch hated me, but someone wanted me to think that. Miss Marple nodded. Yes, someone used his temper yesterday to mask their own plan today. She turned to Inspector Slack. Let us consider motive, Inspector. Finch and Lily had a quarrel. Convenient, timely, a perfect misdirection. Slack frowned. So someone timed the attack to make Lily look guilty. Precisely. Miss Marple walked to Finch's abandoned table. She examined the faint smear again. Her voice was a soft hum of thought. The harmful thing was not in the tea, not in the cup, not in anything Finch touched by choice. She crouched slightly, looked under the table, then at the chair Lily usually sat in. She tapped the cushion lightly. Something was placed here, a residue, something activated by heat or pressure, something meant for Lily. Dolly whispered, horrified. Then, Finch sat in the wrong place. Miss Marple finished softly. The room grew still. The truth darkened. Miss Marple straightened. Her eyes were gentle but sharp. The villain planned this for weeks. They watched Lily's routine, counted on it, used her fear, used Finch's temper, used Clara's arrival. Every step was designed to shift suspicion. Slack exhaled. A long game. Someone patient. Miss Marple nodded. Someone who knows how to move pieces quietly. Her gaze drifted across the room, toward the man in the dark coat. Still seated. Still silent. Still pretending to read a menu he'd never ordered from. Then something else caught her eye. Near his coat pocket. A slip of paper. Half visible. Half hidden. Not accidental. Careless. Or too confident. A folded receipt. Edges crumpled. Ink faint but readable. From the chemist's shop. Dated this morning. Miss Marple walked toward him slowly. Soft steps. Certain steps. Her voice warm, but with an undertone sharp as winter air. "I believe, sir," she said quietly, "that the truth begins with the item you just purchased." He froze. His hand slid toward the pocket. Too slow. Too late. Miss Marple reached out, gently lifted the receipt, and read the one word printed on it that changed the shape of everything. Irritant. The room seemed to pull inward. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a slow tightening of air as Miss Marple held the chemist's receipt between her fingers. One word. Simple. Silent. Dangerous. Irritant, she murmured. Soft. Calm. Deadly clear. Inspector Slack stepped closer. "Let me see that." Miss Marple handed it over. Slack's jaw tightened. "Purchased this morning. Strong concentration. Handled improperly. And it could cause what happened to Finch." The man in the dark coat shifted in his chair. A small movement. Barely noticeable. But Miss Marple noticed. Every inch of it. She turned her attention back to the scene around her. The chair Lily should have sat in. The faint smear beneath it. The panic. The confusion. The quiet terror in Lily's eyes. Everything pointed toward a careful hand. A planned moment. Someone who knew Lily's habits well. Too well. But habits are double-edged things. When broken, they expose the hand that depends on them. Miss Marple stepped closer to Finch's table. Her eyes followed a line no one else saw. From the smear, up the leg of the table, to the edge of the cushion, to a tiny, barely visible speck that had escaped the hurried cleanup. A fleck of fabric. Thin, fine, dark. She bent carefully and lifted it with her gloved fingertips, held it up to the light. The tea room leaned in. Even the air waited. A single thread. Dark wool. Not from Finch's clothing. Not from Lily's simple winter coat. Not from Clara's worn sleeves. A match to the coat worn by the stranger. The man in the corner. The one who had hovered near the table. The one the clerk nearly misidentified. The one who claimed he saw nothing, knew nothing, not involved, not connected. Miss Marple turned toward him, her gaze soft, almost sympathetic. "Your coat is of very fine wool, sir," she said gently. "It catches easily on rough wood, especially when someone bends beneath a table." His face tightened. "We all brushed past that table," Miss Marple nodded. "Yes. But only one of us purchased an irritant this morning." He swallowed. Slight. Barely a tremor, but enough. Slack stepped forward now. Voice harder. "Sir, do you care to explain why your coat thread is here, under the cushion Lily usually sits on?" The man stood abruptly. Too fast. Too defensive. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. Tension crackled through the room. Miss Marple raised a calming hand. No drama. No panic, just calm clarity. "Finch was not meant to sit in that chair," she said softly. "Lily was, and someone ensured something harmful was placed there. A substance activated by pressure, placed on the underside of the cushion. Slack ran a finger beneath the cushion. His expression darkened. Sticky residue. The doctor needs to see this." The man in the coat stepped back. Too careful, too quiet. He reached for the doorway. Not running, just drifting. trying to disappear into the edges. Miss Marple's voice met him gently. You planned for routine, but routine shifted. And now we see who built the trap. Slack signaled 2 officers waiting near the door. They moved. Slow, steady, purposeful. The man's shoulders stiffened. His breath hitched. A tiny sound. A fracture of confidence. The room held its breath. Every eye fixed on the quiet unraveling of the villain's composure. Material proof in Slack's hand. A matching thread in Miss Marple's fingers. A chemist's receipt printed in cold, unforgiving ink. The circle had closed. The truth stood plain. But Miss Marple stepped back, calm as ever. Arrest is now possible, she murmured. But timing matters. A truth must settle before it is spoken aloud. Slack nodded. Slow. Reluctant but trusting. The man in the coat froze mid-slip toward the door. Too late. The inspector's hand hovered, not yet touching the man, but close. Very close. The moment before justice. A breath held at the edge of the final reveal. Miss Marple asked for a moment alone with the man in the dark coat. A quiet request. Softly spoken. Almost gentle. Inspector Slack hesitated, then stepped back. The officers moved aside. The tea room lowered its voice to a hush. People pretended not to watch, but watched all the same. Miss Marple approached him with slow, deliberate calm. No accusation, no sharpness, just quiet presence, the kind that unravels a person more effectively than force. "Will you sit, dear sir?" she asked. It was not a question. It was a soft instruction. He, Saturday stiff, jaw tight, eyes narrowing as though ready to defend a fortress that was already falling apart. Miss Marple settled opposite him, hands folded neatly. A grandmother at tea, a hunter in stillness. "You were very careful," she began. "Very patient, very observant. But one small detail slipped." He scoffed. "People see what they want to see." "Yes," Miss Marple said gently. "That is what you counted on. You shaped Lily's fear, fed it, turned Finch's temper into a smokescreen. You needed them both confused." His lips twitched. Annoyance or admiration? Hard to tell. She continued. "Finch was meant to sit elsewhere. You knew his habits too. But you relied on Lily's routine more. And routine is a delicate trap. One shift, and it snaps." He leaned forward slightly. "Do you think you understand anything about this?" Calm voice. But the calm was cracking at the edges. Miss Marple tilted her head. "Oh, quite a lot." He swallowed, tension in his throat. His fingers tapped once against the table, a sign of a man who feels the walls closing. Miss Marple lowered her voice. "You purchased an irritant. A strong one. Not to poison, no, but to cause harm. Serious harm. A fright. A warning. A way to place blame exactly where you wanted it." His eyes flicked to Lily. A sharp flicker, too telling. "You thought she ruined your life," Miss Marple said softly. "That she caused the audit at the post office. That her mistake exposed your own. Miscalculations." He stiffened. "You have no proof of that." "But you just spoke of the audit," Miss Marple replied, her tone still warm. "Something only the guilty party would know." His breath faltered. His calm broke. A crack spreading through the mask he'd worn all morning. "She ruined everything," he hissed. Soft, sharp, full of old bitterness. If she had just kept her head straight, if she hadn't misplaced things, none of this would have toffly happened. Miss Marple nodded slowly. "So you planned to frighten her, to mark her as unstable, to push the blame onto her." His jaw clenched. "And Finch stepped into the wrong place," she finished quietly. "Your plan shifted, your anger expanded, and now here we are." He leaned back, exhaled. A long, defeated sound, something between rage and sorrow. A man who believed his logic was flawless, undone by a single thread of wool. Inspector Slack approached again. Slow steps. Measuring the moment, the man's eyes darted toward the door, toward Lily, toward the smear, toward the satchel, toward his coat. There was nowhere left to run. Miss Marple folded her notebook, her voice gentle. "I'm afraid, sir, The truth can no longer be rearranged. Slack nodded once. Officers stepped forward. The man's shoulders sagged, his arrogance drained. Only the raw edges of anger remained. Dolly Bantry watched with a trembling hand on her chest. Lily Veen held her purse as though clutching her own fear. Clara Finch stared into the distance, relief and guilt swirling in equal measure. The truth stood clear, but the emotional damage lingered like a bruise. Quiet, deep, not easily healed. Justice could be carried out, but the hearts inside the tear room would not return to normal so easily. The tear room held a new kind of silence. Not fear, not danger. Something softer, something unsettled. A village trying to make sense of what it had just witnessed. Then the murmurs began. Quiet at first, threaded through teacups and half-finished plates. A rising hum of disbelief and readjusted judgment. Mrs. Dodds shook her head 3 times in a row. I served that man for weeks, and never once did he look dangerous. The baker's wife leaned in. Danger isn't always loud, dear. Sometimes it sits in the corner, just watching. Near the window, the vicar's niece whispered with her friends. We all thought Lily was at fault. We said terrible things. One friend sighed. People assume the wrong person when they panic. Another nodded. And Finch, poor man. Wrong place, wrong moment. Tommy Briggs clutched his comic tightly, his voice small. I saw him bend down. I thought I just imagined it. Mrs. Dodds rested a hand on his shoulder. You spoke up when it mattered. That's what counts. Clara Finch sat alone for a long moment, her eyes wet, her hands restless on the table. I thought he wrote me that letter, she whispered. Thought he still blamed me for not helping. Dolly Bantry slipped beside her. Your brother had his faults, but he didn't trick you. You were targeted too. Clara let out a breath she'd held for years. Maybe now. We can speak again, when he wakes. Lily Veen stayed near the corner, quiet, still, her purse against her chest like a shield. People approached her with soft apologies. Warm voices, gentle hands. I'm so sorry, Lily, we misunderstood. We judged too quickly. We didn't see the pressure you were under. Each apology helped. A little. Not enough to erase everything, but enough to let her breathe. Miss Marple sat at her small table again. Notebook closed, hands folded, eyes soft. She did not bask in attention, did not explain loudly. She simply watched the human work of healing begin. Dolly joined her. Jane, you saved the day. Miss Marple smiled gently. Oh no, dear. People save themselves by speaking. Truth only needs one spark. The rest is listening. Inspector Slack approached next. Marple, the arrest will be formal soon. We found more residue on the underside of the cushion, just as you said. Miss Marple nodded. Yes, patterns rarely lie. Slack hesitated. But there's still the matter of the satchel. Finch's bag hasn't been found. Miss Marple looked up. Kind, eyes sharpening just a touch. Yes, Inspector. I wondered when you would mention that. Slack frowned. You think it matters? Oh, yes, Miss Marple said softly. Very much. Dolly leaned closer. Oh, dear. Do you mean there's more? Miss Marple did not answer immediately. Instead, her gaze drifted toward the back corner of the tear room. A small shadow beneath a bench, barely noticed, barely there. She smiled gently. Justice is coming, dear Dolly, but not complete yet. A soft hook, a quiet warning. The village breathed again, but the final truth had not finished its journey. The trial came quickly, quietly, efficiently. The village had waited long enough for its answers, and the magistrate wasted no time gathering the facts Miss Marple had so neatly arranged. The courtroom filled early that morning. Villagers sat shoulder to shoulder. Whispers drifted like soft drafts through the wooden benches. Everyone wanted to see the man in the dark coat face the law. He stood stiffly before the magistrate, not defiant now, not clever, just small, a man who had mistaken bitterness for justice and found himself crushed beneath his own logic. Testimonies unfolded one by one. Firm, clear, unavoidable. Mrs. Dodds described the moment she switched Lily's usual seat. Tommy Briggs spoke about seeing the man crouch under the table. The chemist confirmed the irritant purchase. Inspector Slack presented the residue from the cushion. Clara Finch held up the forged letter, voice steady but eyes shining. Even Lily found her voice soft, shaking, but steady enough to speak the truth she had carried alone for too long. He wanted to punish me. He said I ruined his work. I didn't. I was only trying to help. The village listened, some in shame, some in disbelief, most in a new understanding, slow, painful, necessary. The hidden character, Clara Finch, found something like redemption. Her voice trembled as she spoke about her brother. We had our distance, but I did not wish him harm, nor did he wish it upon Lily. He simply sat where he shouldn't have. That line softened the room. A reminder that cruelty wasn't Finch's way. Only misfortune placed him in harm's path. Public opinion shifted again. Gentle, human, real. The villagers who had once whispered about Lily now looked at her with sympathy, respect, apology. When the magistrate delivered the verdict, it landed quietly. A firm sentence, measured, free of spectacle, justice done, not loudly, not angrily, simply done. The man in the dark coat lowered his head. The arrogance drained from him like water, leaving a cracked vessel. Miss Marple watched him carefully, not with triumph, not with bitterness, just with understanding. Because she had seen it before, many times. People undone by their own resentments. By grudges they fed, until those grudges grew teeth. Outside the courthouse, villagers gathered in small circles. No harsh gossip now, no rushed judgments, just quiet talk, lessons shared, warm apologies. A village knitting itself together again. Lily stood alone for a moment. Hands clasped, eyes soft. Then Mrs. Dodds approached her. We owe you kindness, Lily, and we intend to give it. Lily's shoulders relaxed. A weight lifted. A life restored. Clara Finch walked beside her. We were both misled, she whispered. Let us forgive ourselves too. Miss Marple watched them walk away. Two women healing from different wounds, both deserving of gentleness. Inspector Slack joined her. Well, Marple, that's the end of it. Miss Marple gave him a small, thoughtful smile. Oh, not quite, Inspector. Slack blinked. Not quite. Miss Marple looked back toward the courthouse doors, toward the empty bench, toward the cushion, toward the faint smear she'd traced with her eyes. There is always one truth the court does not address, she murmured quietly. A truth about why people choose harm instead of help, bitterness instead of healing. Slack frowned. What truth is that? Miss Marple let out a soft breath, one that explains far more than evidence ever can. She saw, behind all the testimonies and all the guilt, the simple human truth that had driven the entire tragedy, a truth she had not spoken aloud. Not yet. Davis returned with a warm, steady gentleness, the kind that settles a room after a long, weary day of truth. He set down his teacup softly, letting the steam curl upward like a quiet blessing. Tonight's tale, he murmured, gave us two small reminders, a single wool thread and a simple folded note. Tiny things, but they changed everything. He let the silence breathe, not heavy, not sad, just thoughtful. Sometimes, Davis continued, truth doesn't arrive loudly. It rests in patience, in small signs, in the courage to look gently at what others rush past. His voice warmed around the edges. And now, tell me something, dear listeners. Which clue spoke to you first? And where are you listening from tonight? The soft crackle of the hearth filled the pause, a comforting sound, a familiar one. Davis smiled into the quiet. Thank you for sharing this evening with me, for listening with kindness, for letting truth unfold at its own pace. Then his voice lowered, cozy and certain. Tomorrow, another kettle will boil. A faint little clifflet slipped into the closing breath. And somewhere in the village, another quiet secret waits. A soft whisper drifted into the closing quiet. Not loud, not urgent. Just enough to stir curiosity like a curtain moving in a still room. "Tomorrow's mystery begins," Davis murmured. "On one narrow lane, where footsteps echo at dawn." A faint image followed an old attic, a cracked window, a small trinket resting where no one remembers placing it. "And somewhere," he went on softly, "a letter waits on a quiet mantel, unopened, undisturbed, yet holding the weight of a truth someone feared to speak." He let the images settle, not explained, only offered, like clues placed gently on a table. "Come back for the next page," Davis whispered. "A secret is waiting. Quiet now, but not for long. In tomorrow's story, one forgotten object will change everything." Snow settled lightly over the village lane as evening deepened. Miss Marple walked home at her gentle pace, her scarf tucked neatly, her footsteps soft against the quiet road. A warm glow spilled from her cottage window, steady, welcoming, unhurried. On the small gate beside her path, a single envelope rested, unclaimed, unopened, its corner lifting in the breeze like a shy whisper. Miss Marple paused, eyes thoughtful, then picked it up with quiet care. Another story beginning, in the softest way. She stepped. Inside, the door closing gently behind her. A calm, graceful end to the day.